Alrighty, welcome back everybody. Today we are going over the Windows command line lesson of the Cybersecurity 101. It is one of the recommended courses for your SAL1 certification. So it says we're going to learn the essential Windows commands. It's an easy room. It's supposed to be 45 minutes. I think we'll get this in under 45 minutes. So I already went and started up my attack box as well as the room computer. So let's go into the introduction. Everyone prefers a graphical interface or a GUI until they master command line interface or CLI. There are many reasons for that. One reason is that GUIs are usually intuitive. If someone offers you a GUI interface you're unfamiliar with, you can quickly poke around and discover a non trivial part. Compare that with dealing with the CLI, or also known as a prompt. CLI interfaces usually have a learning curve. However, as you master the command line, you will find it faster and more efficient. Consider this trivial example. How many clicks do you need to find your IP address using the graphical desktop? Using the command line interface, you only need to raise your hands off of the keyboard. Let's say you want to recheck your IP address. You need to issue the same command instead of moving the mouse pointer to every corner of your screen. That does make sense. So there are many other advantages in using a CLI besides speed and efficiency. We'll mention a few. One is lower resource usage. So CLIs require fewer system resources than graphic intensive GUIs. In other words, you can run your CLI system on older hardware systems with limited memory. If you are using cloud computing, your system will require lower resources, which in turn will lower your bill. Automation. So you can automate GUI tasks, creating a batch file or script with the commands you need to repeat, and it's much easier. And you can also do remote management, which CLI makes it very convenient to use SSH to manage a remote system such as a server, router, or an IoT device. This approach works well on slow network speeds and systems with limited resources. So the learning objective of this room is to teach you how to use the MS Windows command prompt known as cmd.exe, the default command line interpreter in the Windows system. We'll learn how to use the command line to display basic information or basic system information, check and troubleshoot network configuration, manage files and folders, and check running processes. So it says prerequisites for this room. You should have finished the Windows and AD Fundamentals module, which we already went over. Then go ahead and start up your machine, and it's going to want us to SSH into this machine right here that started up for us. So there's instructions right here for SSH where you do SSH, you do the username. So this is user, then at, and you're going to put in the IP address displayed in your window. And then we're going to hit enter. All right, it's going to ask for the password. The first time you do this, it will ask for this prompt. So say the authenticity of the host, and give the host can't be established, and it will essentially ask if you are sure and you want to continue. You can type in yes at that prompt, and it will add that to the list of known hosts. All right, and then you'll just enter the password. So now, if you notice, this kind of changed right here. So it's not anymore the root at the IP of the attack box. It is now saying we're user at WinServer 2022 attack core, and we're currently in the C/user/user directory. So let's go ahead and answer this question. Was the default command line interpreter in the Windows environment? That's going to be cmd.exe. Okay. The answer was right up here, and it stands for the MS Windows command prompt. Usually you just say command prompt. Okay. Next, we're going to go over basic information. So before issuing commands, we should know that we can only issue commands within the Windows path. You can issue the command set to check your path from the command line. So let's go ahead and do that. Boom, the terminal output below shows the path where the MS Windows will execute commands as indicated by the line starting with path. So this one up here shows a nice little long path. Here we have the PowerShell path. Here's the normal path. All right, so this is 32. Okay, and we can see the home drive, where home actually is, the log name, so that's the user right there. We have the computer name as well, which is WinServe 2022 core. Um, it is running that cmd.exe, which is what we're using right now. All right. It also tells you a little bit like user domain if it's workgroup or attached to an actual domain. All right. Next, it says let's use the ver command to determine the operating system version. So our version is this 10.0.203048.2655. All right. And then now it says enough warming up. Let's discover more in-depth information about the system. We can run the system info command. So there's various information about the systems, and it takes a little bit to get all the information. All right. So it's going to give us OS information, system details, processor, memory, and the terminal below shows a snippet of it. So cool. All right, ours just went through. So high review requirements, network cards, hot fixes. So which KBs have been installed. That's good information to know. So if they're missing KBs, that's a good place to look. All right. Before moving on, it is good to mention a couple of tricks. First, you can pipe it through more if the output is too long. Then you can view it page by page by pressing the spacebar button. To demonstrate this, try running driver query and compare it with running driver query pipe more. And the latter can be displayed using the output page. Okay, so we'll do that after we answer these questions. All right. So, what is the OS version of the Windows VM? So we did know that. Boom, we got that through ver, and it is version 10.0.20348.2655. Boom. Whoops. 203. There we go. It helps if you can type in what you're thinking. And what's the host name of the VM? That's going to be that Win SRV 2022 Tap Core. Is that all right? So now that we got that, let's go and see what they were talking about with the piping more thing. All right, so let's do driver query. And this is going to give us information about the drivers on the system. And if you can tell, it's not horrible, but it definitely doesn't all fit right there. So let's go ahead and try. Oh, it's still going. Yeah, so all of that, that's quite a lot. So let's see what it looks like if we do driver query pipe more. All right, and now it's just giving us what fits in the window. Then you hit spacebar, you hit spacebar, you hit spacebar, and then to exit, you do Control C, like that. All right, next, task 3. We're moving on to network troubleshooting. So most of us are used to looking up MS Windows network configuration from the GUI interface. The command line interface provides many network-related commands to look up your current configuration, check ongoing connections, and provide troubleshooting networking issues. So, network configuration. You can check your network information by using ipconfig. Okay, so that's going to tell us about our IP address, subnet, mask, and our default gateway. You can use ipconfig/all to get a little bit more information about each one of your adapters that you have, and it just gives a little bit extra information. All right, so depending on what you're looking for, you might want to use /all instead of for the normal one. All right. Network troubleshooting. So one common troubleshooting task is to check if the server can access a particular server on the internet. The command syntax is ping space, then the target name. It could be a URL, it could be an IP address. All right. Like if you have a proper DNS server, then you can just do the host name and it will tie it together to the IP. So, inspired by ping pong, we send a specific ICMP packet and listen for a response. If a response is received, we know that we can reach the target and that the target can reach us. So let's find out if we can reach example.com. So we'll do ping space example.com. And it's pinging example.com. Bada bing bam bam. We'll see if it actually goes on here. In their example, obviously, we have a couple of successes here. So we talked about ping earlier in a different video, but we got 52. So all 4 packets were good to go. If you look on ours, because we don't believe we have internet access over here. All of our requests timed out. So troubleshooting wise, you might want to be, hey, what's going on? Why is this machine not being able to reach where we want to go? Well, it turns out its network connection is unplugged, like its Ethernet cable is unplugged, something like that. All right. So another valuable tool for troubleshooting is tracer, which stands for trace route. The command tracert space then your target name traces the network route traversed to reach the target. So without getting into more details, it expects the routers on the path to notify us if they drop any packets because its time to live has reached 0. The terminal output below shows that we passed through 15 routers before reaching our target. So if you look, they did tracer example.com. Example.com's IP address ended up being this, and then we just started hopping through. We timed out on several of them. On the 9th hop, we did connect over here, and then that pivoted us a little bit further. And on number 15, that's when we actually reached our destination of 93, 184, 215, 14. So it's good to see how your packets are actually traversing. That way you can assist in troubleshooting. All right. More network. Okay. So looking at more networking commands, we're at NSLOOKUP. All right, and NSLOOKUP allows you to get IP addresses in return if you know the host or the domain for it. So the syntax is NSLOOKUP space, and then you have your website, and it will identify which DNS server that you're using. So it's using this DNS server. We can hit space and identify which DNS server we actually want to use if you have a different one. So down here, we're using the DNS server 1.1.1.1 except for whatever the default one was. We're both going to example.com. So this DNS server, which did not get specifically called out, it's just the default one, is going to return example.com with this IPv6 address and this IPv4 address of 93.184.215.14. And that is the same information that is provided by this other DNS server of 1.1.1.1. So cool. Different DNS servers hopefully have, for the most part, the same information if it's public facing. All right. The final networking command we will cover in this room is netstat. So netstat, this command displays the current network connections and listening ports. So a basic netstat command with no arguments will show you established connections as shown below. In this case, we only have one SSH connection, and we figured it out as SSH because it's bound to port 22. So that's again going to known ports. So if we do netstat over here, all right, we can look. We have a TCP connection from this address here on port 22 because we are running SSH to get into here. All right. There's a couple additional flags that you can do. TAC-H is the help page. TAC-A gives all established connections. All right. So there's a couple different ways to do that. It's going to give us an example group of flags. So we're going to do TAC-A, B, O, N. All right. And that's going to give us all established connections, listening ports, the program associated with each listening port and established connections, the PID, as well as a numerical form for address and port numbers. All right. So one of our questions here is what is the name of the process listening on port 3389? So let's go ahead and do that with, we're going to do netstat ABON, and it's going to come through. And now we are looking for this this port right here. And it's a UDP port, and it looks like it is called term service. Is using that. Cool, and it is. All right. It's not super complicated. These are all useful tools, all right, to just know about and to commonly employ. All right. So which command can we use to look up the server's physical address? So it deals with network. So we're going to do ipconfig, and then we're going to do space. We want more information, so we're going to hit all, and that's just going to cover it. All right. And the subnet mask, we did do that earlier. Come on. Boom. Subnet mask on this is 255.255.0.0. So 255.255.0.0. Bam. Next up, we're talking about file and disk management. So you have learned to look up basic information, basic system information, and check the networking configuration. Now, let's discover how to browse the directories and move files around. Working with directories, you can use CD without parameters to display the current drive and directories. Let's go ahead and do that. Hey, we're in C users user, all right? Because our username is user, and on Windows, most user profiles get put into user. All right. Anyway, um, it says that's equivalent asking where am I? You can view child directories using dir there for directories, and we can see in the user folder we have desktops, documents, downloads, favorites, links, music, pictures, save games, videos. These are all fairly normal to see in Windows profiles. All right. Now there are a couple flags that you can use with this. dir/a will give you all of it, including the hidden ones. All right. So, and then dir/s will give you all the files in the current directory and all of its subdirectories. So that's quite a lot to do from your regular base directory, okay? Let's see. You can type tree to visually represent each one in a little bit easier to see format. Again, this is the same information that you get from dir. So we got our desktop documents down to videos, desktop documents down to videos. Now, you can change the directory that you're using by using cd and then your target directory. So this is equivalent double clicking in the GUI. You can also use cd ... to go up a level. So if we do cd desktop, all right, then we'll do dir to see what's in there. Nothing's in there. So let's go back up. So cd tac. And if you look over here, so we went from user desktop. Now we're in cd users user. So we can do that again. And now we're in users. So if we do dir, we'll see if there's any other users here. So we have an administrator and a public, which are fairly default accounts. User is our own profile that we're on right now. And they even have another account called Strategos. So you can kind of go around and be curious and see if something's in there, if we have permissions for that. Let's get back into our main one over here. Now we're going to go over to how to make directories, and that is with mkdir and then the directory name. So we'll go ahead and do that. So mkdir space, and we'll hit test. Then if we do dir, we can see we now have a test directory that we made right there. All right. Now to remove it, we do rmdir, then the name of it. So rmdir space test, and it will remove it. And then we're going to type dir just to see, yep, it is no longer there. All right. Working with files. So you are working with the command line and you're curious about the contents of a particular text file. Now you can easily view text files with a command type. This command will dump the contents of the text file on the screen, and this is convenient for files that fit within your terminal window. Now you might want to consider more for longer text files. This command will display enough text contents to fill your terminal window. In other words, for long text files, you use more. Then again, you're going to hit that space bar and then Command C to exit out. All right. You can hit copy. So you can type copy, and that will let you copy a file from one location to another. All right. So over here in this example, it's showing that there is a test.txt document in the example directory here, and they're going to say copy space text.txt space test2.txt. So we're in the example directory, we're telling it to copy the file of test.txt, copy it and make it into and rename the copy test2.txt, and then hit dir to reveal the contents, and now he has test and test2. So similarly, you can move files around using the move command. So here's an example of that. So we're looking again at the example directory with those two test.txt's. He's going to type move space test2.txt, and it will move it. And then he'll do dir, to see where it went. Um, it wasn't super explained where that's going, but that is how you move. You can say where to move it. Finally, we can delete. So you can put two and two together. The commands here are DL, so del, short for delete, or erase. All right. So if he wants to erase test2, he would just type in erase or del space test2. All right. So it's not rocket science, but it is good to know these basic navigations. And if you're like, hey, why is this different from what we learned for the Linux things? Because they are different operating systems that talk in different languages, essentially. So there are ways to configure your command terminal to interpret like bash and things like that back and forth. Most of the time, those aren't already enabled. So learning the different ways to maneuver in the different CLIs is a very useful skill to have. All right, so we can use the wildcard character. It's the wildcard character. It's Shift 8 to refer to multiple files. For example, copy space wildcard character .md over into the directory of C slash markdown. We'll copy all the files with the extension of md, which is markdown files, and it'll move it to the directory of markdown. So that's a lot easier than saying you're in your GUI, you're in File Explorer, you double click on C for the hard drive. Um, you then do in the upper corner to search, and you're going to search everything with the MD extension, and then selecting all of them. You might use hotkey Control A to select all of them, and then drag them over. Hopefully the Markdown folder is like recent on the left side. If not, you have another window open of File Explorer with Markdown there to drag all those results over. So it's operations like that where CLI really starts to kind of make its weight in gold. All right. But we do have a question here, which is what are the file contents in C/treasure/hunt? So we're in C/user/user right now. So first we need to move over there, right? So we're going to do CD, and we already know the location of where we want to go, right? So we're going to put that in as C :/treasure/hunt. We'll hit enter. All right. Now that we're in here, we need to look around and see what we got. So we're going to hit dir, and looks like we have a text document that says flag.txt. Now, do you guys remember how to display file contents? There are two ways that we talked about. And one of them is just type. So if we do type flag.txt and hit enter, there we go. We have a nice little flag right here, which is TryHackMe CLI _ power. Then we'll go ahead and hit submit. Cool. Next, task 5. All right. So you must be familiar with Microsoft Windows Task Manager, or why is it saying you must? Anyway, it might be familiar with killing non-responsive processes. So let's discover how to achieve a similar functionality using the command line. So we can list the running processes using task list. So let me get over here. Let's see what's running over here. All right. We have quite a lot, which is fairly typically normal. There's a lot of services running on most machines. All right, so some filtering is helpful because output is expected to be very long. You can check all available filters by displaying the help page. So to do that, it is task list /?, and then we have a nice little breakdown of how to further assist with our searches here. Not going to go over all these. You're more than welcome to, but the examples are there. We have some good filters: stats, image name, PID, session name, CPU time, memory usage, username, services. Okay, so it's fairly powerful. And it says, let's say we wanted to search for a task related to sshd.exe. So we can do that with the command of task list space fi or /fi, then in quotes image name equals the whatever you are trying to search for a related task. So this one's sshd.exe. It might be something else. If you're wondering what that fi stood for, it means that filter image name equals. All right. So we do have a question here, which is what command would you use to find the running processes related to notepad.exe? So we're going to do that same exact thing right here. We're just going to copy it. We're going to paste it. And we're going to see, let's see, Notepad. There we go. Because tasks space F5, that's how you do that. All right. Next, with the process ID known, we can terminate any task using task kill space slash PID, then space whatever your target PID is. So you're telling task kid, we're going by PID, which PID do you want to stop? So if you want to if you want to kill the process with PID 4567, we would issue the command task kill space / PID space 4567. So this question, what command can you use to kill the process with PID 1516? So we're going to do that same thing. So task kill space / PID, and we are looking for 1516 here. So that would remove that process right there. So that wasn't too crazy. I hope nobody felt overwhelmed with that. If you did, you have command prompt on your Windows device. If you're on a Windows device, open it up, navigate around, all right? Have fun with that. If you don't have a Windows device, hopefully you have access to, you know, some sort of lab environment. If you're here on TryHackMe, there's a whole bunch of, we're SSH into a Windows box right now. So nothing's stopping you from running around and doing a little bit more and just getting yourself familiar with it. You're going to run into many situations in like capture the flags and things like that where you're not going to have the GUI. All right. So knowing how to navigate and CLIs is a very useful skill. All right. So in conclusion, in this room we focus on the most practical commands for accessing network system over command line. We intentionally omit a few common commands as we didn't see real value, including them in the beginner room. We mentioned them below so that you can know the command line that could be used for other tasks. So check disk, that checks the file system and disk volumes for errors or bad sections. Driver query, we did mess around with that at least a little bit earlier, but that displays a list of installed device drivers in SFC space / scan now. So that scans system files for corruptions and repairs them if possible. Now, it's important to remember that all the commands covered in the previous tasks. Moreover, it is equally important to know that / ? Can be used with most commands to display a help page. All right. In this room, we use the command more in two ways. We could display text files with more, and we could pipe long outputs into a page-by-page view by piping and then saying more. Equipped with this knowledge, we now know how to display the help page of a new command and how to display long output one page at a time. Now that you know the Windows command line, it's time to move on to the Windows PowerShell room. Sweet. So let's answer these two questions. The command shutdown /s can shut down a system. What command can you use to restart a system? All right. So hopefully that made sense, and we can kind of guesstimate what it is, but we are going to look in the help documents here. All right. And if we're going, so we want to restart a system. Restart starts with R, and it says that will do a full shutdown and restart the computer. All right, so let's go ahead and try that. Shutdown / R. Bam, cool. Um, there are obviously other flags and arguments that you could put in here. If we're just talking about restart, that's one of the ones that's fairly easy to translate from English to English. All right. Now, what command can you use to abort a scheduled system shutdown? All right. So I do like how in these questions, it kind of gives you what to go off of. So obviously we want to restart, starts with R. We want to abort a scheduled system shutdown. So we can read through all this, read through all this, read through all this, read through all this, /A aborts a system shutdown. All right. And then it even says like this is going to be used during the timeout period, blah, 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 blah. Let's go ahead and try that. Boom. Maybe. There we go. All right. So congratulations on completing the Windows command line room. All right. This module, as it said, next we'll be going into PowerShell, which is a lot of fun. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.